Welcome back. I got Yosi Kossowsky on the line. Hey, Yosi, how are you?
I'm doing really great. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm really good, really good. And I made sure to make sure that I didn't do what Chris Voss did and call you Yoshi. So I saw that in a video a while back, and I was like, that's Yosi. But anyway, I see how people could probably slip up on that. But really great to have you on the show and all that. So why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So I spend my time working with leaders and teams, helping them be more effective in what they do. Very often, we are taught how to do our technical ability, whatever it is, finance, technology, marketing, and sales. But the leading of other people, the inspiring, the getting buy-in, the getting people to follow you and complete the work, delegation, and all of that is not something that we're taught in schools, as far as I know, or university. And we all of a sudden find ourselves in these positions where we are responsible not only to get our work done, but to help others or inspire others or drive others, however you want to look at it, to get work done. And very often we are finding that it is hit or miss. Some of us have figured out tactics that are more effective and some less. And often there's conflict and friction. And, uh, I think that there's clarity, but that's not how, I'm not getting back what I've asked for. And so I came through my own career changes, started off in IT, went into engineering, started working more with getting people to do work with me, and discovered that I actually wasn't good at this either. And my solution, as it was for an engineer, was to do a root cause analysis on human behavior, really understand what is the drivers of human behavior. And unknowingly where that would lead me, that led me ultimately to here. So at first I started studying emotional wellness therapy and helping me understand my emotions and where they're coming from, how to name them, how to recognize them, how to understand what is triggering them or kicking them off. Um, that then led into understanding the idea of limiting beliefs and derailers. Um, and that also helped me really start to understand other people's emotions and what they were going through and how to recognize that. And understanding how I was feeling and being able to recognize that helped me also when I was working with others and they were expressing their feelings, to be able to like really kind of get out of my own mind and think, okay, just come on, get along, get over it, and recognize that just like I need time to work through my things, so does everybody else. So we would, I guess, call that empathy or compassion. I don't know, but that grew out of it. And then ultimately, I also became very interested in the neuroscience piece of it, primarily because I kept on walking around with this feeling, the more I learned, that there was like a little tug of war going on in my head. For example, if I decided I wanted to eat healthier, stay away from sugar or chocolate or something, so I'm like, that's a decision. But yet I would walk through the store, and every time I would see the food that, that type of junk food, I would be very pulled. And I would like have this war inside of me, like, no, yes, no, yes. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, what? All right. And so that really got me to study and understand what is the flow of information and emotions and thought in the brain, and how is all of that process working. And that really kind of also blew me away, because one of the things that really became clear was it seems that we are really emotional beings having a cognitive experience and not cognitive beings having an emotional experience. And so our emotions are playing a much greater role in our behaviors than I ever perceived or understood or was even taught about, really, I guess, when anyone was kind of talking about this. And the second one is really how subjective our perception is. So I am talking and you're looking at me, so it looks like you're listening to me. And yet I know, because each of us really do have subjective perception, meaning you have a filter system that you have been building since the time you were born until now, and so have I, and so have all your listeners. And no two people have that same filter system. Practically speaking, that means that I am talking to you, you are hearing something, but the chances that you are hearing exactly what I am saying or what I am hoping you are hearing is zero. There is some percentage of, let's say, overlap of accuracy, but unless we have a conversation and I say, hey, Michael, what are you hearing? How do you understand what I've said so far? I actually have no idea. And if we think about in the office environment, often leaders are telling people and they'll say, any questions, anybody? And we're like, no. What they don't realize is the no questions doesn't mean they understand the leader. It means whatever they have in their head, they understand that. And that can therefore lead to misalignments. So in a really long-winded way of what do I do? That's what I do is I work with leaders and teams, um, from first line leaders to executive leaders to helping them and their teams be more effective.
The emotion side of things is always an interesting dynamic amongst all the other things. And like one thing that a few things jumped out of mind when you were speaking, and the one that's on top of mind right now is the any questions comment. And what I find is if we're having a team meeting at the end of the day and the management says any questions, the peers and colleagues are all looking at Chloe, for example, and saying, Chloe, don't you dare ask a question because Chloe likes that. Chloe likes to ask questions. She's an angel when it comes to that. And because she's genuinely interested and wants to know. Everyone was checked out and halfway out the door about 30 minutes before this meeting started. So don't have meetings at the end of the day, kids. It's one thing that I've observed over my career. But yeah, emotions are in what a fascinating journey that you've had, going from IT and troubleshooting and technology and data centers and all the fun stuff we get to do, and then you're like, okay, let's go into some engineering, and engineering, of course, is an amazing. We don't have things if engineers don't get involved. Okay, that's just and this is coming from my original career was public accounting, so and I got that right away. Like, yeah, we need the engineers. I didn't think we need the marketing people so much, but then I realized, well, if you don't market, then no one knows about your business, and I learned that lesson the hard way, after launching my own business. Like, oh, marketing. I best learn how to do that. But at the end of the day, everyone's bringing in their own, and as you said, hearing what they hear. And I love that, approach on how you described it, on how you said some things and how I'm hearing it in my own custom design filter that, I developed, 50 something years ago, and, continue to do so, I guess. But ultimately, when someone says something, it's like, okay, this is the meaning of what I'm saying, whether it's an initiative at work or, with your spouse saying something and you're hearing it, but it's going through, like you said, this filtration system that might strip out more than it should. And a couple ingredients here or there can dramatically change the dynamic of that interaction to the point where you might have a very upset spouse at you because your filter filtered out something that they really wanted you to hear. So I wish there was a button somewhere where we could turn the filter off, because that would really come in handy, especially when you're dealing in very important matters and even the not so important ones. But again, that I just find that your interesting journey to how you get this. And it's so applicable in the workspace. And we've seen it. I know you have over the last, especially the last 5 or 6 years, but it's been going on for a lot longer than that. The dynamics of the workplace is, I don't want to call it necessarily a big mess, but based on what you're hearing and reports and lack of engagement and turnover and organizations going out of business and all of that, there's some huge challenges going on right now, and I think that the emotions and communication challenges, when you put all those ingredients together, it's really making for some problematic issues for a lot of companies, which I'm sure you're seeing all the time with people that are coming to you and going, "Help!" So I'd love to hear your
Right.
thoughts on that.
So yeah, it almost it almost seems like a perfect storm elements post COVID, where we were already thrown into having to go through change at an unprecedented rate. And for the most part, I don't actually think we as humans are good at that. Evolution has taken whatever, thousands, millions of years. And essentially, if we look back at our recorded history, we can see that, there's been progress and there's been like big things along the way. But I don't think that the world ever in anything I've looked at in history ever experienced a thing like COVID. And we went from there. No one could really stop working, so we all had to like figure out how to do it differently, uh, how to deal with engagement, how to deal with our kids, how to deal with our parents, and there was a tremendous amount of emotional stress and mental stress, unknown. The way we did our work changed everything. And we've never really stopped to breathe or recover from that. And then, as we come off of that, honestly, I mean, I know it's a few years difference, but now we're hitting AI, which is another unprecedented set of technology changes that is touching every aspect of the workplace in some way. Some of it's really real, meaning rubber hit the road. And a lot of it is just the unknown of it and the way that big corporations are responding to it, investing in it. Um, and we are unable, because of our filter system, to really differentiate between what's, let's say, real, objectively real, and what we experience as real. And so ultimately, there's this saying that perception is reality. And as far as we all go in humans, that's exactly true. And so regardless of is things really changing or not, or are things good or bad or not, if I perceive them to be, then they are. And so I don't know who was, maybe it was one of the Fords, Henry Ford, that said, if you say you're right or you're wrong, if you think you're right or you're wrong, you're right, essentially, right? Whatever you believe or think about yourself, then that's going to be correct. Or I can or I can't, something like that. And it's true. So you add in now the government changes and the tariffs and the unknown and all of it, and we are in this crazy state where really I think there's always a lot of unknown that we've been able to make believe wasn't unknown. And now it seems that that's stripped away from us. And so in addition to the usual long-standing communication challenges that we've talked about already, right? With the subjective perception and all of that, you now add in all of this additional heaviness to it and noise and input. And now you throw in a younger generation that's coming into the workforce that really does have a different mindset overall about work and life. Um, and maybe you are, I don't know if you've got kids, but I'm finding myself thinking that I'm sounding a lot like my parents when they were looking at me and thinking, you generation, you kids, you're crazy. And adopting and adapting to that. So yeah, it's just a never ending sense of movement, shifting, I'll call it some change. And still, we haven't overall, in the people that I'm meeting and talking to, grown the muscle of how do we deal, how do we process, how do we support ourselves, how do we support others through this, because all of our mental strategies are not enough.
Yeah, it's the playbook is from 1996 and we're in 2025 and it's like it's not working.
Right.
And it hasn't been. And with the multiple generations that are coming into the workforce, and Gen Alpha is not far behind, and so you've got all of that, and a lot of generations are working much longer. So you've got all of these generations, and many of them have some different viewpoints on what the word work means and what it looks like. And when you have other generations that are like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. I want it to be this way. And it's a combination from my perspective anyway, like they don't know what they're doing, get off my lawn kind of mentality type of thing.
Right.
But it also, I think there's an element of, I don't want to say jealousy, but like, wait a minute, if they're able to not work the 50-hour, 60, 70-hour work weeks and still get everything done, and I'm not able to do that, uh, I feel they feel either lost, maybe their ego is dented, maybe they feel frustrated that they didn't figure that out first. There's all kind again, that's when all the emotions and the thoughts and you just start, thinking about all the possibility kind of thing instead of just slowing down and going, well, no, I mean, work and how we work has adapted and evolved over the years and, leveraging technology in a way that is beneficial to the customer and the workforce. Yeah, that's obviously going to impact some things. And, I had a conversation earlier today with someone regarding AI and, how with, the potential for job elimination, they had said that they're not overly concerned too much about the US, but overseas, where we've been using a lot of virtual assistants and other types of roles that are being done by people in countries like the Philippines or India or something like that. It's like, well, if AI can do those jobs, then all of a sudden from an economic standpoint, that could be quite devastating to those nations because that might be a huge contributor to their economy. So there's these dynamics that come into play, and it's darn near impossible to keep the emotions out of it to extent. They're gonna want to be there because they're with us. They're as much as I would love to say, okay, emotions and ego. I'm gonna set you over here to this coffee shop right here. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back, and then hop in the car and drive a couple miles away. I'm like, I'm just gonna leave them there.
Exactly.
If there's a way I could do, and I think there is a way to do that, but they call that coping mechanisms, and maybe some illicit things and alcoholic beverages and things like that that can kind of help park those, but that's temporary. More importantly, I feel is to figure out to recognize, okay, yeah, I'm feeling and getting more in tune with how you're thinking and how you're feeling. Even the point I have this thing that my wife gave me a while back. And I forget the original source of it, but it's basically a feeling wheel. So it's got all the emotions, anger, sad, and all that stuff. And, goes 3 layers deep. So it's this big, wheel of things and all of that. And it's been really helpful for me. It's like if I'm feeling something, I'm like, okay, what are you feeling right now? And a lot of people, they'll look at that very surface level, but they don't actually go, okay, I'm actually feeling fear or
Right.
or maybe anger and or disappointment or they don't think through, okay, why am I feeling this? And it could be something as simple as it reminds you of a past experience that wasn't positive for you. And all of a sudden you're role playing and you're saying, okay, I'm going to apply that playbook to this situation because it's something that's in memory and I remember it. But it may not be applicable to this, but you're bringing it anyway. It's like, okay, this we're going to use this cutlery for this meal. It's like that cutlery is not going to work for this meal. You're eating soup, and I just gave you a fork. Yeah, you might be able
Right.
to get the noodles or whatever else is in there, but the broth is not going to stay on that fork very long just by design. So unless you have a spork from KFC, then maybe you can wing it. But at the end of the day, there's so many different dynamics that us humans bring to situations. But then when we're problem solving and we're trying to figure out how come we're not breaking through this market, or how come performance has dropped, how come engagement has dropped, we don't look at that. We're looking at these external things as to why this is all happening, but I think a lot of us need to look within a little bit more and get some clues as to, okay, what am I bringing to this that's causing the situation that we're facing right now? Because we're all bringing something to it.
Right. As you're talking, the other thought that I've been having is, you know, most of us in the professional world did some sort of degree or certificate to get the skills that we have. Now, meaning, I guess in the latest generation, people who learning development or coding don't actually need to go for a certificate. It's very easy just to find the material to learn. But if you're an accountant like you are, or a doctor or something, you know, engineer, we've all gone through college or something. Now we're in this place where one of the biggest, in my experience, impediments to success is our self-awareness and how to process that emotion healthily and how to help others so that we get followership and we get team productivity. And what are companies doing? They're throwing a 2 hour, a 3 hour, maybe a whole day training at somebody and say, okay, now you got everything you need to all of a sudden be an expert in how to deal with your emotions and how to help everybody else. Not even forget a year, right? Let's say half a year, a day, 2 days. Oh, you can have a couple months of coaching, right? Which is a total of maybe 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. And it does make a difference, especially when you're doing one-on-one coaching and you're kind of getting that straight support throughout it. If we want, and as long as we're reliant on each other and humans to get work done and to move productivity and get results, I think that we really need to double down on how we support ourselves and the people that we're working with and the people that we're leading. Otherwise, the the trip ups, the mental health issues, the the challenges of getting things done, of being productive, of being able to show up every day at our best is just going to continue to diminish.
And we've seen it. We see it with the Gartner studies. The engagement is so low, and so many organizations, they don't know their people.
Right.
And they literally don't know. They don't know that, their colleague Stacy, just lost their dog, for example. They don't know that.
Right.
And if Stacy doesn't feel comfortable sharing it in a workplace because there's no it's siloed, or there's just no engagement where people don't really know each other. They don't really say anything. And I think back throughout my career and those organizations that I just continue to think on and go, I had such a blast about that. Every single one of them, we all knew each other. We all knew different things about us. I mean, maybe not to a personal degree like your mother or a sibling would know, but we're humans that are working. And I love how you said that, where it's like we need to focus on the human side of things, because if we do that and we make sure, borrowing from Amy Edmondson, the psychological safety component of it, people just want to feel safe. They want to feel like they belong, that they're wanted. And you address those, what I hope would be basic needs for people, then the work more or less is going to take care of itself. Because if you're coming to work in a healthy-ish state, both mind, body, soul, everything, you're not going to be thinking so much about whatever challenges you might have. And we know, like, for example, I think it's 70% of Americans are under some significant amount of debt, and that
Right.
inflation and tariffs and the cost of things certainly isn't going to help that number by any
Not at all.
stretch. And we're starting to see, and quoting the late Detroit Pistons and Team USA basketball coach Chuck Daly, he had a quote: "A pessimist is an optimist with experience." And he looking at what's going on now, there's a lot of obviously concerned, like, okay, are we going to be looking at, a housing type of situation or another type of financial challenge where people are, they're already struggling, and how does that
Mm,
play into things? And with financial stress, for example, people will bring that into work.
mm,
As much as they would like to compartmentalize it and put it away and just focus on their work, most of us are going to be thinking, okay, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm putting in all these hours, but I'm not making a dent in this. And they get disgruntled, they feel frustrated. Has nothing to do with work itself. If they're properly compensated, it's just the circumstances and situations that they're in. But what happens is that tends to start spiraling down where they become disgruntled and maybe mistakenly are blaming their employer for the situation they're in, when in fact it's really not their employer's fault in that particular situation. But there's all of these ingredients and all this baggage that we carry around with us in our lives. And we show up at work and we unload all the bags in our cubicle on our desk. And unfortunately, we don't spend enough time actually looking within and working on ourselves to figure out, okay, how can I downsize from all these bags I'm bringing? What are some things
right,
that I need to work with? And I think that's where, working with, a team like yours from, a company standpoint has that, you know, ripple effect, quite frankly, where
right,
you're doing that work. Okay, we're doing this to improve this organization and its deliverables and how you do things and all of that, but it has this ripple effect where people can actually take those lessons and learnings, apply it in their own personal lives, which I know is a component of what you do. And
right,
from there, all of a sudden, not only is the workplace a bit better, but all of a sudden their home life and their personal lives start getting a little bit better because they're taking a little bit more interest in the human side of things instead of the widget side of things per se.
right. 100%, 100%. And if there's anything that I would hope that your listeners take away, it's that caring for ourselves cannot be secondary. I mean, I don't think it ever could, and now more than ever. And the other thing is, with all of the technology and all of the information, there are many sources that we can use to help ourselves. I'm not a huge fan of using AI as a therapist or a coach, and yet you can. I don't think you get the same level of insights because I don't think it has human intuition at this point. And yet, still that basic level of being able to get a thought out and get a thought back is capable even at a digital level today. And so I hope that anybody who wakes up feeling heavy and stressed day after day realizes by listening that there are so many people that can help you. There are so many ways, and you don't have to think of it as therapy or a weakness. It is what is going on. And I would put money down that anybody who thinks that they're alone in this, this is just me, it's only happening to me, I'm the only one feeling this way, just talk to two other people and you will realize you are unfortunately in completely shared company.
Yeah, there's none of us are alone in all of this that's going on in the world, from the unaddressed trauma of the pandemic to everything that's transpired, in our lives. May not even just be the last 5 years. It could be, go back a long time for some people, depending on what the challenges are. But seek to find the human in you and find ways, whether through therapy or talking with other people. Don't go at this alone. It's important for you to, because people can see some things that you may not be able to. It's kind of the fishbowl effect. It's like, what's going on? It's like, yeah, I'm only in this fishbowl, but other people can see some things that you may not. And if their heart is right, their interest is to help you help yourself and a better version of you. The world needs that for everybody that's listening or watching. We need you to be the best version of you because that just improves everybody across the board. So, Yossi, I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. So, Michael, the best place right now is LinkedIn. I keep
Mhm.
on wanting to get my website built, and it will be yosikosowsky.com one day. But for right now, LinkedIn is the place. There's even a button there to book time with me for people who want to talk and just have an exploratory conversation.
Awesome. I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So again, thank you, Yosi, for your time today and your insights. I really love this conversation. So thank you so much again for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.